Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Hoving. I'm going to walk you through a few of the homework problems. So I want you to print up your homework sheets, homework sheet 1 and 2, and then you can watch this along with me. So I'm just going to do a few of the problems. Here I'm going to start with the first homework problem, and you should see it on your sheet. I just wrote it here on this page as well. But the first syllogism is, all gold is expensive. That's our first premise. The second premise, some rings are gold. And then our conclusion is, therefore, some rings are expensive. So I wrote down the steps that you should take as you go through these syllogisms, and we're just going to do them together. So first, you're going to have to draw the 3 circles overlapping, okay? So make sure that you have them overlapping where you have, all these different regions here. You have to have a center section where all 3 circles hit, and then one for here, and one for here. And then you're going to label the category circles. So I just go through my syllogism, and the first time I see a subject, or a term, I just put it on a circle. So here we have gold. So I just label this circle, gold things. So I keep going. All gold is, and then the second term I see is expensive. So I make the second circle, expensive things. I'm going to keep going. Some rings. This is a new term I haven't seen before. So I made my third circle, rings. And then we see gold again. So these are our 3 terms, gold, expensive, and rings. So that's what I'm going to label my 3 circles. All right, so then I just start. So I've done that. I've labeled the category circles. And step 2 says, look at the premises to start with a universal premise. So when I say universal, we're looking for a premise that has the words all or none. So universal, remember, are the A statements and the E statements, sorry. So A is all, and E statements are the none. So out of these 2, we have, our first one is a universal premise. So let's go ahead and get started with that. It says, look at the premises, start with the universal premise. Step 3 says, diagram the universal premise. So how are we going to do this? The first one says, all gold is expensive. So if this circle stands for all gold things, we're going to look for where it overlaps with the expensive things. Here's the expensive things circle. So we know we're going to have to do something with these 2 circles, and we're not dealing with this circle down here at all. So all gold is expensive. Basically what I need to do is I need to take all the gold things and push them into this part that's going to be left, the expensive things part. So to do that, I'm going to shade out all this. So I made a little, you'll just use your pencil and shade this region in, but you're basically going to cover this region here and this region down here. These are all the gold things that are outside of the expensive circle. So now we've pushed all the gold things into the 2 tiny remaining areas. So everything that's gold, you can't have anything out here. It's now all in here in the expensive things part. Okay. And then, so that's the first, we did step 3, we diagrammed the universal premise. Now step 4 says diagram the remaining premise. So this is our next one. Some rings are gold. Now, whenever you hear the word some, it means we're talking about at least one, right? So I'm going to use a little star. Whenever I see the word some, I'm going to put a little star by it up here. And that also means I'm going to use a star on my diagram down here. So it says some rings are gold. So I'm going to take a little star and I'm going to put it where some and gold overlap. So where would you put it? Some rings are gold. So I know it's going to have to be in the ring circle. And it's going to have to be where rings overlaps with gold. Now we've already said there can't be anything in here, so I can't put my star there. That one's already closed off. There's nothing there. But right here, we have where rings overlaps with gold things. So this is where I'd put that second premise. That some means there's at least one. So the star reminds me that there's at least one. And its rings are gold. So it's in the ring circle and it has to overlap with the gold circle. And it can't be where it's already shaded. So that's why it's important to do the universal one first, because it'll shade out some of the regions where there's nothing. And then you're left with this one. So we've done the 2 premises. Now we have to look at the conclusion. Therefore, some rings are expensive. So I go back to my ring circle. It says some rings are expensive. My star reminds me that there's at least one in here, at least one gold ring. And because we know, we can look from our diagram and see that it's also in the expensive circle. So that tells us that yes, there are at least some rings, at least that one is expensive. So in this case, we would say that this is valid. Okay, so the answer to number 1, I would want to see this. You've shaded this region to show me that there's no gold things outside of the expensive circle. Then for the second premise, you would have put a star in here where the rings overlaps with the gold things. Remember, there's none here because this has already been shaded out. We've already decided that there's no gold things outside of the expensive things. And then therefore some rings are expensive. We just look at it. We don't add anything more to the diagram, but we say we go to that section where rings and expensive